Welcome to the Daily Globe. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. The news hit like a tremor, reverberating through every corner of the nation. Canadians from all walks of life awoke to headlines that seemed almost unthinkable, their morning routines interrupted by a sense of unease. The story dominated every conversation, from bustling city streets to quiet rural kitchens, as people tried to process the magnitude of what was unfolding. In Ottawa, the heart of Canadian democracy, the shock was palpable, shaking the very foundations of the Canadian Confederation. Politicians, journalists, and citizens alike struggled to comprehend the scale of the crisis, as uncertainty loomed over the nation's future. Reports began to circulate that the premiers of British Columbia, Alberta, and Saskatchewan had convened in a clandestine meeting in Calgary. There, behind closed doors, they allegedly signed a WEXIT Pact, a bold and controversial agreement signaling a unified intent to separate from Canada. The secrecy of the meeting only fueled speculation and anxiety, as Canadians wondered what this meant for the country's unity. If these reports are true, it would mark Canada's gravest internal crisis since the Quebec referendums of the late 20th century. The echoes of past political turmoil resurfaced, reminding Canadians of the fragility of their federation and the deep divisions that have long simmered beneath the surface. The implications are monumental, touching every Canadian from coast to coast. From the rugged Pacific shores to the Atlantic provinces, and across the vast prairies and northern territories, the sense of uncertainty is shared by all. The very idea of Canada as a united nation is now being questioned, and the future feels more unpredictable than ever. For the West, this is more than a political maneuver. It's a desperate gamble for self-determination, born from years of frustration and perceived neglect. Many in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia see this as their only chance to take control of their own destinies, to shape a future that reflects their values and priorities. For the rest of the country, however, it's an existential threat, one that challenges the very fabric of Canadian identity. In cities like Toronto and Montreal, and in communities large and small, people are grappling with fear, anger, and disbelief at the prospect of a fractured nation. The world is watching closely, with international media outlets broadcasting the story and foreign governments expressing concern. Many are left wondering if Canada's celebrated model of peaceful pluralism and compromise is about to unravel before their eyes. On the streets, reactions are raw and immediate. Some express excitement and hope for change, while others are gripped by fear and disbelief. The uncertainty has sparked passionate debates, protests, and emotional conversations among friends, families, and strangers alike. To truly understand how we reached this critical point, we must look back at the roots of Western alienation, the long-standing grievances, economic tensions, and political forces that have brought Canada to the very brink of division. Only by examining this history can we hope to grasp the full weight of the moment and what may come next. Western alienation is not new. It's a sentiment that has echoed through generations, shaping the political and cultural landscape of the region. The feeling of being misunderstood or overlooked by the rest of Canada, especially by those in power in Ottawa, has been a recurring theme in Western Canadian history. Since the Western provinces joined Confederation, there's been a sense that their unique challenges and contributions are not fully recognized or valued by the federal government. The expansion westward brought hope for prosperity, but also sowed seeds of frustration as decisions were often made far from the realities of prairie life. Many in the West feel Ottawa's policies favor central Canada, treating the West as a resource colony. This perception is rooted in decades of economic and political decisions that have prioritized the interests of Ontario and Quebec, sometimes at the expense of Western livelihoods and industries. Economic grievances, like the National Energy Program of the 1980s, left deep scars. Many Westerners saw it as a direct attack on their prosperity, with Ottawa imposing policies that hurt local economies and undermined provincial autonomy. More recently, heated debates over pipelines and resource development have only deepened resentment. For many, these issues are about more than economics. They're about respect, recognition, and the right to shape their own future. Politically, the West often feels powerless. federal elections are frequently decided before their votes are even counted, leading to a sense of disenfranchisement and frustration with the national political process. The phrase, "the West wants in," became a rallying cry, symbolizing the desire for a stronger voice and fairer treatment within Confederation. It reflects a longing for meaningful participation in shaping the country's direction. Yet, despite these calls, many feel their concerns have gone unanswered, leaving a lingering sense of disappointment and alienation that persists to this day. Cultural differences, from values to economic priorities, and a perceived condescension from the East, only widen the divide. These differences are often amplified by media and political rhetoric, making it harder to find common ground. This persistent sense of exclusion has fueled the rise of separatist sentiment in some circles, as more Westerners question whether their future truly lies within the current structure of Confederation. WEXIT, once a fringe idea, has grown into a political movement. Economic downturns and federal policies seen as hostile to the West have driven support. Social media amplified these frustrations, turning whispers into organized activism. Parties like the Maverick Party have legitimized the conversation, even if electoral success remains elusive. Support for separation rises and falls with oil prices, showing it's more than just talk for many. Political leaders have used separatist rhetoric to pressure Ottawa, normalizing the idea of Wexit. Despite sensational headlines, no premier has confirmed signing a WEXIT Pact. The story's origins are murky, likely amplified by social media and political theater. What's clear is that Western frustration with Ottawa is at a boiling point. Polls show most Westerners feel treated unfairly, but only a minority support outright separation. The federal government's response has been a mix of conciliation and firmness, refusing to back down on key policies. This stalemate fuels speculation and makes even wild rumors seem plausible. In this tense environment, fact and fiction blur, deepening the crisis. The economic fallout of a Western exit would be immediate and severe. Investors would flee, the Canadian dollar would plummet, and borrowing costs would soar. A landlocked Western nation would face tough negotiations for market access, with pipelines and railways as bargaining chips. The rest of Canada would lose its economic engine, straining social programs and supply chains. Dividing national assets and debt would spark years of legal and economic turmoil. Both sides would be left poorer and less stable. For many, the economic risks alone make separation a perilous path. The social costs of separation would be just as devastating. Western provinces are deeply divided. A push for independence would fracture communities and families. Millions have ties across provincial borders. New international boundaries would disrupt lives and identities. Citizenship questions would arise, forcing difficult choices on residents. Indigenous peoples, whose territories cross provincial lines, would face chaos in treaty relationships and governance. Failure to consult Indigenous nations could spark conflict and legal battles. A Wexit would challenge the very idea of Canadian unity and diversity. It risks turning Canada's story of compromise into a cautionary tale of division. Legally, secession is nearly impossible without national negotiation. The Supreme Court's ruling on Quebec says a clear majority on a clear question only obliges talks, not independence. What counts as a clear majority or question remains undefined, making the process a political minefield. The West lacks the unified identity that made Quebec's movement potent. Interests diverge between provinces. Without unity, the separatist movement struggles to gain momentum. Economic and legal entanglements make a clean break a fantasy. Experts agree, Wexit is more an expression of frustration than a workable plan. The path to independence is fraught with uncertainty and near impossible hurdles. A Canadian breakup would reverberate globally. Canada's reputation as a stable, reliable partner would be shattered, undermining its role in alliances like NATO and the G7. The US would face economic and security headaches, with supply chains and border security at risk. A fractured Canada would complicate Arctic sovereignty and continental defense. A new Western nation would need to renegotiate all trade agreements, creating years of uncertainty. Global energy markets would be destabilized by a less reliable, landlocked supplier. The symbolic blow to democracy would embolden separatist movements worldwide. The world is watching, hoping Canada can hold together. Whether the WEXIT Pact is real or rumor, it's forced Canada to confront its deepest divisions. For decades, tensions between East and West have simmered beneath the surface, occasionally erupting into public debate but rarely addressed with the urgency they deserve. Now, the conversation is impossible to ignore. The very idea of separation, even as a hypothetical, has shaken the nation's sense of unity and forced Canadians everywhere to reflect on what binds us together and what threatens to pull us apart. This is a moment of peril and opportunity to address Western grievances honestly and rebuild trust. The voices rising from the prairies are not just calls for attention, but urgent demands for fairness, respect, and meaningful change. If ignored, these frustrations could deepen, but if met with empathy and action, they could spark a new era of cooperation. The stakes are high, and the choices we make now will echo for generations. The future depends on choices made now, by leaders and citizens alike. Political decisions, community engagement, and everyday conversations all play a role in shaping the path forward. It's not just up to politicians in Ottawa or premiers in provincial capitals. Every Canadian has a voice in this moment. Canadians must recognize that prosperity and unity are linked. Harm to one region harms all. Our economy, our culture, and our future are woven together from coast to coast to coast. When one province struggles, the entire country feels the impact. Only by working together can we ensure that every region thrives and that no one is left behind. The West must channel frustration into reform, not rupture. Constructive dialogue, innovative policy, and a willingness to listen can transform anger into progress. The path forward is not easy, but it is possible, if we choose to walk it together, with open minds and open hearts. Canada's history is one of overcoming division through shared values and compromise. From Confederation to the present day, we have faced challenges that threaten to tear us apart. Yet time and again, we have found ways to bridge our differences. Our diversity is our strength, and our willingness to find common ground is what has always set us apart. We stand at a crossroads. One path leads to dissolution, the other to renewal. The decisions we make now will determine whether we fracture or come together, whether we retreat into regionalism or embrace a renewed sense of national purpose. The conversation has begun. Now, it's up to all of us to shape Canada's next chapter. Across kitchen tables, in town halls, and on the national stage, Canadians are debating, dreaming, and deciding what kind of country we want to be. The future is unwritten, and every voice matters. The Canadian project is worth saving. Its future is in our hands. Together, we can choose hope over fear, unity over division, and build a Canada that is stronger, fairer, and more united than ever before.